What's up, besties?
It's time to spill the tea.
Welcome back to another episode of The Voice Messages. Ooh, ooh.
Woo woo.
We are going to get started with a this or that. And on today's episode of This or That, it is lip gloss versus lipstick. What do you prefer, Joe?
Obviously, this is a very serious topic.
It
Um,
really is.
I am, I wear lip gloss more frequently than lipstick, but I am a big, I'm a combination girly. I really prefer like a lipstick and then a gloss over, to like
Mm,
mix the shades together a little bit. But
yep.
today I have like a tinted lip gloss that like when it dries, I still it still has a tint left, so it looks like, but it's not a lipstick. But I wouldn't say it's like
Yeah.
matted,
But
you
it
know?
doesn't like make your lips look cakey. Like I prefer lip gloss all day, every day, because lipstick makes my lips feel like really dry looking and cracked after a certain period of time. Like, how do the girlies get their lipstick to look smooth throughout their whole entire day? Because it's
Well,
just not
there's like
working
a
for me.
whole yeah, there's like a whole like lip prep that goes on for very serious lipstick wearers. I, I mean, I've tried like the sugar scrubs and all of that, but like I just don't have time to be like doing a 10-step thing for my lipstick to just come right off. And I know you can get lipstick that stays on forever and all that, but I also don't have $400.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
I don't know, because sometimes my lips just look a little bit crusty when I wear
Mine
lipstick,
always do,
especially like
without fail.
do you know like that lipstick? It's like a lip gloss, but it's like a lipstick, and it's like the leather ones. Like,
Yes and no. Like leather,
oh,
meaning like the way
they
that it
like,
looks.
yes, they're
Like
disgusting.
the packaging looks like leather, or
No,
like the way it goes on your lips looks like leather,
like
which I'm
the
really
way it
trying to
goes,
understand what you're talking about.
the way it goes on your lips, like it like looks like leather and then it dries.
I feel like that's like a matte lipstick that you're talking about.
No, but it's like not like it's like
Okay.
it goes on like soaking, it goes on like soaking wet, and then it like
Oh,
dries. But when it dries, it's like the Sahara Desert. Like it is so bad. Like the lip crusties, like,
I'm gonna need to look that up. Do you know a brand? Like, can you give me more information?
listen, it is like a top-notch brand that I have. I got in an Ipsy glam bag. I think I don't know what it is. I'll have to look it up. I have to look it
Okay.
up. Is it Too
Yeah,
Faced?
I'm
Like I don't know,
curious.
but it's like a high quality brand, and it literally goes on, and I look like sandpaper.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, no lipstick ever works for me, even when I start to put it on, whether it's creamy, it's matte, it's just your regular lipstick. My lips get so caked up and dry. Like, I just feel like my lips look so good with just a little gloss. Just like,
You get a lot of
maybe I
build up.
should touch it up.
You get a lot of build up. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. Sorry, I just had to touch up my lips real quick. By the way, I love this gloss from Maybelline. Lifter gloss, it's
Hmm.
called, in
I'm
case
so
anyone was
sad because
wondering.
I have a Maybelline gloss that I love. It's like a tinted lip gloss
Y-
stain. Listen,
There's
I
so
have
many
all these.
names out there.
Listen, I have, yeah, can we real quick, can we just like reel it in? Like there's the lip stain. Obviously there's the lip liner, which is separate. The lip stain, the lipstick, the lip crayon. I do like a good crayon. It's like a moist like situation going on. There's like the lip
I
marker.
hate that freaking word.
I
Moist,
I just don't understand. Anyways,
but I get it.
ladies and gents, today we are talking about society norms. And I just want to start off by talking about social media and the crazy amount of pressure it puts on us to, be at a certain point in our life. Um, it's just a highlight reel in reality. Like when you actually like, if you were to ask me, if you looked at my Instagram and you were to ask me what was going on that day in every photo, I can promise you it was an
It was
absolute
not perfect.
shit show. Right. I look great, but my day was probably horrible.
I actually love that perspective that you can look at a picture and see like happiness and joy and all of these things. But on the other hand, there was probably something that happened that day that like caused you to be overwhelmed or anxious or mad or whatever. And then you chose to obviously post the happy moments because who's posting mad, sad, unhappy moments anymore? Like no one is posting anything negative, which I get because we live in a very negative world. But I think like sometimes it's just too perfect. Like the Instagram posts
Hmm.
are too curated, too perfected. It's just, it's not reality.
You know what cracks me up? It cracks me up when you see an influencer like they like film themselves getting out of bed. Can we
Oh my God.
can we stop fucking doing that? First off, I look like a sewer rat when I wake up.
Yes.
Have you seen that TikTok lately? I think it's from like Elmo. It's like, who's that wonderful girl? She's the most
I haven't
beautiful
seen
in the
that one yet.
world.
Let
And
me add that to my list though.
it's basically me. Like that's the song that like Matt sings in the morning when he goes to give me a hug goodbye because I look like and smell like a sewer rat. And so for these
Yeah.
influencers, they're filming
Love that for you.
filming they're filming themselves stretching, getting out of bed,
Yeah.
and they're in these like perfectly like white sheeted beds. Like there's not a
Yes.
single hair on them. They're in these amazing pajamas, and they somehow wake up looking. They have a
Beautiful.
fresh blowout. They have makeup
Yeah.
on. But like the idea that they got out of bed, they got ready for the day, probably ate breakfast, and then changed
Did it
to
all
go
over
film
just to
themselves.
video.
Get out of
Yeah.
bed. We don't need to do that. We know you're already
No.
awake if you're filming. We can cut the getting out of bed on social media.
Which I just want to say, like, disclaimer, if that is something that brings you joy, I love that for you. Like, if you are someone who wants to record yourself getting out of bed, looking beautiful, like, more power to you. But it's just not realistic. Like, I get the influencer vibe, and like being an influencer, I totally get it. Like, you guys are killing it out there. I love that for you. But how is that relatable? Because, like you said, we know that you had to set up your camera, you had to set up the tripod, you had to get
Totally.
back into bed, you had to do the whole thing. And to be honest, I've never been the girly who has perfect pajamas. I'm wearing like sweatpants from 2010 with my like husband's old ass sweatshirt and like fuzzy socks. And like those are my pajamas for, and I'm probably wearing them like 2 to 3 times
A,
before I even
a
wash
whole
them.
week. A whole week. I wear a shirt, my favorite pajama shirt. It has like a million holes in it. It is so comfortable for me. It is so soft. It's so worn in. It's just
Yep.
like shaped to my body.
It's
Even
the
though it's like an
best.
XXXXXXL. It is the biggest shirt in the entire world. I love it so much. It's just so interesting because like, you're on TikTok, you see all these girlies with like their nice pajamas. They're like turning into a pajama girly. Like, oh my God, like I love my ratchet t-shirts. I really do. I
I
really
know.
do. I love them with the hole in it. And it just goes back to like, the pressure of social media, like trying to curate this like perfect look and trying to be picture perfect. And, like when it comes to their houses or their apartments, for example, like everything is so pristine and it's just
And aesthetically pleasing.
it's not reality for most people because one, like none of us can really afford to go shop at the entire, you know, Target section, Chip and Joanna Gaines. Like, would I love everything in that section? Yes. But can I afford to like constantly flip my aesthetic over? No. So it's
No, especially for the seasons too. Like everyone, I feel like okay, so right now, just talking about like, Thanksgiving into Christmas, which by the way, I just want to point out, Merry Coffee, for those who aren't watching the video, this is a great Christmassy coffee situation right now because I am obsessed with Christmas. But I just want to put like that little reminder out. It's like you don't have to go and get all the new decorations for Christmas, for Thanksgiving, for whatever holiday you celebrate, just because it's out there, it's at Target, it's, which I'm kind of being a hypocrite right now because I just got a couple new things from Target yesterday in the Christmas section. But you don't have to go and revamp your whole entire life and your whole entire house just because we're in that next season and all the influencers are going to be posting about what's out there, what's at Target, Anthropology, Home Goods, TJ Maxx. Like, do not feel the pressure of having everything to look perfect. Um, and I think that just is like another great point. Like the pajamas. Oh, you have to have the perfect set of pajamas. You have to have the white bedding. You have to
Right.
have the pristine white kitchen with all of like the gadgets. And I actually saw the other day on a TikTok, this woman who was probably like our age, like late 20s, early 30s, and she doesn't have a perfectly looking kitchen. She actually had that like drop down ceiling, like lighting situation,
Oh
like
yeah.
I
I
don't
know
know,
what you mean.
like a doctor's office kind of
Oh
looking
yeah.
lighting. And she was in our kitchen and she was like, I almost was going to post this video of like me making dinner and being like, feeling good and happy just because my kitchen wasn't aesthetically pleasing. It had like the brown cabinets, just
Yeah.
the white fridge that like nobody wants anymore. Um, and I was just like, damn, that sucks that we feel as a society we cannot put out the content that we want because it's not what everyone else is doing and it doesn't look perfect. But at the same time, we are not going to go into debt for having aesthetically pleasing videos. Like, we're not going to go do a whole
Right.
kitchen remodel and get all this new bedding just because Sally Sue is doing it down the street. Like, we're not about that life. We need to save our money. We're not going in a hole just to put out a TikTok video that looks good,
Right. And
you know?
I think that a lot of people like will literally go into debt to like follow society norms of like keeping up with the trends. And
Keep up with the Joneses.
oh my gosh, yes. And I feel like I don't know if we're de-influencing anyone listening right now, but like you do not need all of the shit on TikTok. For example, okay, if someone says you absolutely cannot live without this item, you never need to be influenced for an item that you cannot live without. Okay? I just want to like
True. I love that.
like
Can we say that again?
you do not need to be influenced. Hold on. You do not need to be influenced for an item you cannot live without. And that's it. Water. You don't need to influence me to buy water. I'm just going to buy water. You don't really see advertisements for water, do you? Like, I don't. I
True.
don't.
Just the flavored ones now.
Right.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of, yes, the influencers are doing the hint water. It's
Oh,
like
God.
lemon, blueberry, whatever, all the different flavors. But I agree. It's like you're supposed to drink water every day. Like just drink. And honestly, I hate to be this person, but like if you are the one who is going to get water bottles, then do it. Like if that's what works for you, and maybe you can't get let's actually talk about this for a quick second. The Stanley cups, which I am a culprit. I have a Stanley and I think it absolutely sucks. I just got one a couple months ago, so I was not the person to go out and get it first thing when it was like this
Wait,
big
wait, the
phenomenon.
cup sucks or
The Stanley,
it does,
the cup
you don't like
sucks.
it?
Yes. The Stanley, I absolutely hate it. I hate it. $40, a waste of time and money. It leaks. It does not hold ice. I have a Yeti cup that I've had for years and that works so much better. So I'm just saying, like, don't feel like you have to be the girl to go out and get the perfect, aesthetically pleasing cup to put your water in. Like, if you're just getting the freaking Poland Spring water bottles at, your local, yeah, using a mason jar for your water that's, filtered out of the tap, whatever. Like, do you. Don't be shamed because you have to use a single serving water bottle. I get it. We're trying to save the planet as much as we can. But, like, don't feel the pressure of going to get all these freaking $40 is
That's
such a
expensive.
crazy amount of money for a water bottle.
Yeah, that's
Like, what are we doing?
that's
What are we
that's a
doing?
lot of money. I would spend that on a Yeti though, just given that I already know the quality of a Yeti because I have like a few like Yeti, like I
Yes.
have like the tumbler Yetis and I really, really like the quality of them. But again, it's just like
I love it.
social media is just such a highlight reel. And when it comes to like living situations, especially, like there's so much pressure on moving out of your home and buying a house, especially for like folks our age. Like I just feel like there's so much pressure to buy a house,
Yeah.
which is so unattainable for most people our age. Like millennials, especially, we were not set up for success at all. The housing market is ridiculous. Interest rates are really high. Everything is just 10 times more expensive and salaries have not gone up at all. So it's interesting when like we get pressure from like older generations, that like, oh, like you really shouldn't be renting right now. You should really be buying. It's better for your investments. And like it's like, yeah, great. It is a good
Yeah.
return on investment. However, I did buy a house last year and I can say this house is a fucking money pit. Like we We flipped this house was flipped before we move in, and like we're like, okay, we don't have to do any work. Like we just spent $10,000 on some HVAC ducts, like work that we'll never see. You know what I mean? It's not like aesthetic or anything like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, like this house is like literally a money pit, and it's great. Like I love owning a home, and I think that there's something so proud of like with owning a home, but I also think it's okay that if you want to rent, you can rent. And if you think that like renting
I
works for
agree.
you better because like you don't want the responsibility, you should not own a home if you cannot like take on the responsibility of it. This has been the biggest undertaking
I agree.
of my fiance and I's relationship, like the amount of work like that you have to do on your house, like because like we can't afford to have people come in and do the work for us all the time. It's a lot.
And you don't even think about those things. I feel like they don't. And when I say they, I just mean like the world in general, right? Like we're not taught anything about like the next steps of like going into adulthood, right? We talk about other things in school that are just kind of we're never going to learn it in real life or use it in real life. And they don't talk about that. They don't talk about like, the upkeep of a house, the maintenance, like you said, just anything that could just break at any given moment and you have to come up with thousands of dollars. And I also think the other side of that is that some people love to have a maintenance free living lifestyle, right? Like you said, they never have to, worry about it. You're calling your landlord, you're calling, whoever it might be that you are renting from. And maybe you have a good connection with that person, like your landlord. Maybe it's great. You have a set,
Oh
rent that you're
yeah.
doing. They help you out for your house. Like you love the style, whatever it might be. And that's great. Like if you want to stay there for the rest of your life and just continue renting, you're not throwing away money. I hate that society makes us feel like the timeline being, okay, you have to find your partner, then you have to, get married, then you have to buy a
Hmm.
house, then you have to have the kids. And it's just not realistic. And especially in this market, like us millennials, $100,000 is
Oh
like
my gosh.
nothing anymore, which makes me want to throw up just saying that. But like, even putting down 100,000, you're still paying so much money on a mortgage. The interest rates are crazy. And I just have to say, like, for me personally, like my husband and I, we used to live on our own, right? We moved out when we were young, around like 20. We rented for 4 years in apartments and they were gorgeous and they were like the newer apartments. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Oh my God, right? Obviously, looking back, I'm like, holy shit, how did I do all of that? But, it allowed us to grow up. We figured things out. We got through it. But then my parents fortunately bought a new house and they were like, "Hey, we'll do the basement over for you. We'll make it into your own in-law apartment." And I at first was like, "Absolutely not. I cannot see us moving back to mom and dad's." Yes, we technically have our own space, but I was like, I don't know about this." And my husband on the other hand was like, "We're doing it. Like this is a no-brainer. We're going to save
Right.
money, time, like all of the above." And we've been here for almost 6 years, and I could not be more grateful for our living situation because it's given us time, it's given us freedom, it's given us just so much more. And at first, I looked at it as like a
Mm.
downgrade when ultimately I've been upgraded. Like, there's no pressure to move out. I'm not about to go drop 700,000 on a house that needs to be renovated and put myself in crazy amounts of debt for no
Right.
reason. But I almost felt like there was kind of like a shame
Mm.
around that. Like if you have to move back home to your parents' house, do not feel guilty, do not feel shamed. And like I always say, as long as it's good for your mental health and you feel confident and comfortable in that situation, go back to your childhood bedroom, go back to the basement, go back to whatever works for you. And also, it's like, I also look at it as a time that I get to, spend a little bit more with my brother, my parents. We're not going to be together forever. And it just has been really nice to like have more time with them that we're just, again, we're not going to get back. So do not feel shamed for moving back into your parents, for never moving out to begin with, or for renting in a cute little apartment that works for you. Like there is no shame in doing any of those
And I think like
things.
the other thing to note is that like a lot of like young women our age are sort of just like going the route of being like, I don't know if I want to be in a relationship. And I don't know if I want to live with someone else, or I want to be in a relationship, but I don't want to live together. Like I don't want to get married. And we live in a society in a country that it's a dual income household to have a house, or someone has to make a significant amount of money. So it almost makes like, it rules out single people wanting to buy a house. And I think that there's no shame in them like living on their own in an apartment or whatever it is, right? And especially if you love your lifestyle, because it's also not possible for everyone to move into a home based on where they live. If you live in a city, you
Totally.
can't buy a home. You're probably not going to be buying an apartment or a condo. It's so expensive. So if you want to live in the city because of work or whatever, and you end up renting your whole life, it is what it is. I also hate the mindset of like you're throwing money out the window, especially for people that like moving out will give them like peace of mind and give them, give back their mental health and mental sanity.
Yeah,
I'm like, you're not wasting
totally.
money on your because you're doing something that benefits you. And if you also, I also
Exactly.
feel like there's also part of it. It's like moving out like will help you. For some people, like it really helps them grow up and really helps them be like, oh my gosh, like I need to get my shit together. And I think for some people, they just need that
Yeah,
like push to go out there in the world. So I think I see both sides, but I also, I don't, you shouldn't be shamed for doing something that benefits your financial situation, your mental health, your lifestyle, because a down payment our parents would put on a house back then is a quarter of the down payment we
yeah.
need for a house.
Nothing now.
So it's just so much different.
Yeah,
And like I am traditionally following the like standard society norm timeline. Like we got a house, we got engaged, we're getting married, and then we're gonna have a baby. And that kind of leads me to like the next topic is like the pressure to have kids. Like I'm feeling it more and more.
yeah. Let's dive into that because I have a lot to
And
say.
I'm feeling it more and more now that I'm engaged. And I just kind of want to put like a pinhole in the kid thing for a second with like, getting married and whatnot. I feel like, especially with being engaged, like people are now asking me like when you're having kids. And it's like, I haven't even had my wedding yet. Which, by the way, the norms
Yeah,
for a wedding nowadays is just like again, it's one big social media
insane.
highlight reel, and I feel like we've kind of stepped away from what it's actually about to fucking people.
Two people.
Right. And it's like
Yeah,
if you can afford this big lavish wedding, like good for you. And I think that that's great. And like just make sure you fucking invite me. But I think if you're going
hello,
Literally,
plus
I think if
one.
you're going in debt for a wedding, like we need to stop normalizing that because you're never going to be able to get that house you want. You're never going to be able to get
No,
ahead. You're never going to be able to afford those kids you want. So like you should not be going into debt for your wedding. Like I don't know how loud I can
absolutely
say
not.
that, but it's normal now.
Yeah, I know it's like over $100,000 for a wedding, and that's not even including everything that you need. I just think it's just again, it's unrealistic. It is so I just feel like this all kind of goes back to social media. We live in a world where we're so plugged in nowadays. Technology is at our fingertips. We can literally look up anything that we want to, and within 2 seconds we have an answer, and we have multiple
Yeah.
answers, right? And we see all of these weddings on TikTok, on, Instagram, whatever. And it's just like, yeah, does it look beautiful when you're on the Amalfi Coast? Of course it does. That's gorgeous. But also, we're not talking about the price. I think that price like transparency should be more of a
Hmm.
thing when we're on
Yeah.
social media, like with these influencers and with, whoever's sharing their life on social media. I feel like you should really do like a price transparency. Like, don't make it sound like, you had all this money just like at your fingertips, like if you're going into debt, like put that out there because again, it's not realistic. And again, no one's going to do that, right? Because it's a highlight reel. So of course, no one's going to be like, I'm in debt for this kitchen remodel, for this wedding of my dreams, for the house that I really wanted. Like, it's too much. I find that smaller, like micro weddings have become a little bit more
Yeah.
popular. I don't think everyone is doing the crazy big wedding so much anymore. I think that they're kind of recognizing, like, hey, I'm not going to put myself in debt for one night, one day. And like, do you really care about every single person at your wedding, like 150, 200, 250, like
Fuck
however many
no.
people are at your wedding? Do you actually care that much about them to spend that
Absolutely
much
not.
money? Because I don't. Like, I do not have 150 people that I care about that
Right.
much to throw out 100 grand. Like, I much rather keep that for myself. and do something completely different. But on the other hand, again, it's like, just know that if you want to do an elopement and have a beautiful dinner with like close friends and family, that is beautiful. If you want to do a destination wedding and have, 10, 15 people there, that is beautiful too. Like, do not feel the pressure of having to. I also feel like, sorry, I'm kind of switching a little bit, but I feel like women who are single right now are already worried about like the next
Mm,
steps, right? They're worried about like, how about like, what if I don't find a husband in time by the time I'm 30? Like, and then if I find that husband, what if I, don't have the money for the perfect wedding that I need to have? Like, it's so much like too far into the future that we're thinking about because of social media and timelines and like the pressure of having everything so perfect by the time that you're 30. I feel like we can't even just enjoy the stage of life that we're
totally.
in, right? And I always say, like, if you can't enjoy the journey to your destination, once you get to that destination, it's still never going to be fulfilling because then you're on to the next destination. Like, we're just crossing off boxes here for society. And I think it's such bullshit. And we need to stop doing that. Live for ourselves, live in the moment, and do you, because we do not get this time back and life is too fucking short to do anything that you don't want to do just because society tells
I
you to
I
do it.
literally know people that like do things purposely, like go out of their way to like go to a certain place just because they want to be able to post that they were there. And
Yeah,
it's
I know.
I'm
It's sick. We
I'm
live in a
like
sick
like
world.
was the food really that good? I remember one time I went out for a friend's birthday and we went to this like popular bar or whatever, and it's like really hard to get into, and like, oh, it's going to be amazing. And I remember going there and I'm like,
Yeah,
what? Like, did I miss something here? Because I'm like, like the food sucked, the drinks sucked, everything was overpriced. I'm like,
yeah,
I like my little diner down the street or like my little like bar near the water a lot more than this place. It's just so interesting because so many places are so hyped up.
yeah,
And I think going back to like, transparency about like money and stuff, and it's like people aren't really being realistic and they're not being like, yeah, I'm in credit card debt for like this crazy wedding or this the crazy house that I have or the aesthetics that I'm following, right? And I feel like myself, I'm actually pretty transparent with this stuff. Like people have asked me like, how much are you spending on your wedding? Because we're doing a wedding moon where it's a destination where we're getting married
yeah,
and staying there for a honeymoon. We're combining it all together to save
which I
money.
love that.
And I've been honest with people. I'm like, yeah, I'm spending $15,000. And I'm not afraid to like tell people that because I'm like, listen, like we had a budget and like 15,000 was our high budget.
Yep.
Originally we wanted to spend 10,000, but
Yeah.
I wanted the whole 2 week vacation thing. And when we started looking at venues, it just like wasn't possible for us. And then some of it, like I started to ask myself, like, am I doing this for myself or am I doing this for like other people? Like just to invite all these people that I normally don't talk to? And am I doing this just for social media?
Yeah.
And am I doing this because this is what everyone else is doing? And I'm doing something that not a lot of people end up doing, like a destination wedding. And I've slowly been able to let go of like
Yeah.
the norm around it, like the pressure like of like why I shouldn't do it. And I've just been like, fuck it. Like I'm paying for it and this is it. And like it's still a lot of money for us, like, because we're paying for it on our own. That's the other big thing. And so it's
Of
still a lot
course.
of money.
Yeah.
And like I'm not I'm Matt and I were just like, we're not going into debt for our wedding. Like we are going to work together as a team
Totally.
to pay for this
Why would
expense.
you?
And that's that.
Yeah.
And like, once March comes around, we're not going to owe anything. And I know that that's a huge privilege to say that, but I think we need to stop normalizing these big weddings and normalizing going into debt for your wedding.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I also had a destination wedding, which of course we'll go into weddings like we could talk about weddings for days and days and days. So we'll definitely do a whole nother episode on this. But we had a destination wedding, and long story short, we started planning the big wedding, right? We started doing all of the things. We had the venue, we had the people, yada, yada, yada. Um, there was a turning point that I'll talk about in a different day, but there was a turning point for me that something had happened and I just flipped a switch and I was like, you know what, we're doing destination. And we ended up having, I think there was like 10 or 12 of us total. Loved that for me. And we had a blast. We were there a little bit before
Love it.
everyone came and arrived. We were there for obviously our actual wedding. And then we stayed a little bit later once everyone left as like our honeymoon. And it was the best thing that I have ever done for myself. And still, price transparency, I think it was around like $10,000 we had spent. But that also included our like room stay, our honeymoon stay, like everything like was included. And it was the best decision. Like, we still look back on that day and we had such a blast with everyone. And at first it was kind of like, oh, when we were thinking about destination, we're like, what if a lot of people don't show
Right.
up? Like, what if there are just like, 10 chairs on the aisle and people around us are probably like, oh my God, like what's, going on? But I was like, fuck that. I quickly just got over that, perspective in my mind. And I was like, the people that are going to be there for us on our wedding day are
Oh
the ones
yeah.
that truly matter the most. And that's all that matters at the end of the day. Like, as long as you have people there who are there, especially for you, they want to see you two get married, be happy, live it out. That's the only thing that matters at the end of the day. Like, who cares about the 150 people that you don't know? Like, what, to watch you walk down the aisle and like just to say that you put it on social media? It's just,
Yeah.
it's too much. So yeah, I am so excited for your
Oh
wedding,
my
by the
gosh.
way. I cannot wait. We are going to have it's a giant big
120
party.
days.
And you're never going to do that again for the most part.
Yeah, I have my little like
128
countdown thing back
until
there, but yeah, it's just
I
crazy
love it.
though
I
because
love it.
I'm so pumped for
I'm
my wedding. Oh
pumped.
my God. It's crazy though because like since we gotten engaged, I'm gonna go back to the kid thing and like, people are now asking us like when we're gonna have kids and kind of like you said, like it's just a constant checkbox. Like I'm literally just trying to enjoy this time
Yeah.
being engaged. Like, can we not talk about like what's next for us? Because what's next is we're getting married and that's what I'm focusing on. And you're asking me like what's next and like when we're having kids and it kind of like bypasses like the whole thing with like me being excited for the wedding. Like I want to be excited for my wedding. I want to focus on the wedding. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to be looking at time after the wedding sort of thing. I want to be living in the present moment. I really am trying to
No.
like soak up this time. And it's so interesting because I'm also like, yeah, like, I was saying to my mom, I'm like, I'm probably not going to have kids or try to have kids until like after the summer of 2025. Who knows? Things might change after, our wedding and stuff like that. But I said, right now, like, we are going to like, we're going to pay off this new HVAC system. We need to get a fence. We have house projects to do. And we also want to go to Europe. And my mom's like, so you're going to have a kid. You're going to go to Europe over having a kid. And I said, yeah,
Hell yeah.
I don't
That's
understand
a
why those two
no-brainer for
things are
me.
like those two things are not like parallels. I'm like, I can't be
Yeah.
pregnant and be going, I mean, I could, but like I'd be miserable. I
No.
want to go to a vineyard
Yeah.
in Italy and drink
Yeah.
my way through it. Like I want to enjoy all the good,
Yes.
nice, fresh
Yes.
wine. Like I want to do that. And that's something that like my fiance and I want to experience. And like I also just want to say that like, we're able to do these things because we don't have kids. And I don't want to, right.
Yeah. Which
And I
is
don't want to
great.
give up my
No
lifestyle
shame.
just yet.
Same. And talking about lifestyle, I feel the exact same way because so on the other hand, right, like you're about to get married and people are already asking you about the kid situation. Me, on the other hand, I've been married for 6 years already. And people assumed, and again, Steve and I got married when we
So
were young. We were
crazy.
23, yada, yada, yada.
At
And I
23,
know. We are the
I know
true
at
definition of high
23,
school
like we had
sweethearts,
just moved in together into our apartment, like after college. And we were like,
which is
listen,
wild because I was already living together with him for 3 years. Like,
timelines, man.
I just want to say, like, when I think about that, I'm like, if I am to ever have kids, like, shout out to my parents because they truly let me live my best life and like let me figure it
That's
out and like
awesome.
didn't ever really put any restrictions on me. But I also always did like the right thing. So it wasn't like I was some crazy wild teenager. But when I think about it, I'm like, am I gonna let my 20-year-old son or
Probably not.
daughter move out with their boyfriend? Like, but again, shout out to my parents because obviously Steve and I are doing very well. But anyways, I was just saying that since we got married at a young age when we were 23, like kids weren't even in the question for us. We were like, no, we still want to travel so much. We still have our
Right.
whole 20s to live out. but people were automatically assuming that we were going to have kids within, a year to 2 years of that. And I just was like, absolutely not. And people still ask us to this day, not so much my parents or my in-laws or anything like that, but it's real. Like my parents are very supportive and they're like, listen, if you don't want to have kids ever, that's totally fine. Like this world is messed up. And if you don't feel 100% confident in that, then like do not bring kids into this world. But I just find it so funny that people will still ask us, when are you having kids? What are you doing? Like,
Right.
what's the next step for you? And I'm like, well, we're just living right now. We have two fur babies. We have a great living situation. We love to travel. And I love
Totally.
to get my hair done once a week. I love to get my nails done. I love to get Starbucks, and I don't give a fuck how that makes me sound. But if I'm able to do that right now, still without
Right.
any hesitation, yeah, best believe I'm
We
still gonna live that
You
life.
manifested
I'm
this
not
life,
slowing
babe. I
down.
mean, honestly, it's interesting because like I grew up in like a household where we were really pretty poor and like oftentimes we didn't have food on the table. So I finally feel like my fiance and I are at a place in our life where we like are financially stable and like we can like last night we just went out for tacos just because and we can afford to do things like that. But like
Yeah.
I'm just like I'm just enjoying this time. I'm soaking it up. I love being able to do whatever the fuck I want when I want. I mean, I do have a dog, so she kind of limits that a little bit because she's a needy bitch. But I mean,
Yeah.
I made her needy, right? She's
Yeah.
my,
I mean, I was just gonna say our animals,
yeah,
they give off our vibes. Like my animals are also very bougie and
yeah.
it's okay. I made them
Exactly.
that
My
way.
dog's
Like
an
I give
anxious
them whatever
mess
they
and I'm an
want.
anxious mess. So it's just yeah, it checks
Yep.
out. So
It
it's
checks
just it's
out.
just crazy to me. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of pressure around, having kids and like you said, the world is so crazy and I'm not even like thinking about exactly when. I think like I said like, probably this after the summer of 2025 we'll try to have kids, but I'm also just like not running to have kids right now
Yeah,
just because the world is so fucked up. Like there's almost a World War III going on. Women's
it really
rights
is.
are up in the air, like especially in the state that I live in. Like I'm like, am I gonna be able to get the health care I need? Am I going to be
Yep.
safe? Am I gonna have a safe pregnancy? Like there's just a lot of things to like worry about. And I'm like all
School
the time.
shootings, mass shootings. I mean, you can't even like bring your
Right.
kid to school anymore without maybe there being some like, armed guards or security or not even that. I mean, maybe,
I
not every
know.
school can even afford to do that, but it's just like you have to worry about, is my kid coming home from school today? They're not even teaching the normal fire drills anymore. They're teaching you what
Yeah.
happens when there's a shooter coming in and how do you guys figure that? Like, can you imagine? We're not old. Like, we're in our late 20s. That
You never
is
did
crazy
that?
to me. Like, we never
We did
had
it
to
all
go
the
through any
time.
of that. And
Like
like
lockdowns. We
school
did lockdowns
shootings,
all the time.
well, we did lockdowns, but I never felt like not as much as they do now. I felt like it was very much like, I don't know, it didn't feel, I don't remember there being
We
crazy amount of lockdowns. And it was a very quick
Wow.
like scenario. I feel like now it's
This
just
is
so much more
interesting.
elevated. I don't know.
No, but this is
I mean,
int
I'm also a little
I
bit
mean, you're
older
only
than
2 years
you.
old, like a
So
year
I
older
could
than me,
be,
a year and a half. This is interesting to me. We used to have
yeah,
bomb threats all the time
29.
in my high
Yeah.
school, like all the time. One time there was a case of an active
Really?
shooter, like where like it did like they thought it happened, but it didn't.
What?
So
Oh my
for
God.
me, like I'm like it's almost like normal, but it's so sick.
Yeah. Oh no,
Yeah,
we didn't have that. Maybe it was just like the
I don't
parts of
know,
like
but
Massachusetts that we live in.
this was funny. It not fun. This is not funny. But I had hip surgery and I was in this art class and I was in a wheelchair because I had hip surgery. And so they were, if
I don't know
Lenny
where
is
this is
listening,
going, but
she's
I'm
gonna
already
crack
laughing.
up, my friend Lenny. So I had hip surgery. I was in a wheelchair. They announced that there's a bomb threat. We all have to get out of the school immediately. And so I'm on the third floor. The school's 3 floors. And I'm like,
I shouldn't
you
laugh.
can't, they shut down the electricity. You can't go down the elevator. So I'm like, okay. So then my ear pod keeps literally falling out of
Oh
my
my
ear. Hold
God.
on. So, so anyways, let me back up. I'm in the
It's
wheelchair.
jumping.
I just had hip surgery. I'm on the third floor of the building. They're like, there's a bomb. You need to get out of the school. So everyone's running down the stairs. They're getting out. They're meeting their teachers outside. the girl that I was like kind of friendly with, she was like, she literally got up and started leaving out of the room. I'm like,
Yeah.
can you push me, please? She's like, I have to get out of the school. And I'm like, can you help me? So then she drops me off at the front office and just leaves me there. Everyone's leaving, everyone's running around the building. They're like, honey, you need to get out. And I'm like, I can't go down the stairs. And they're like, well, can you just like walk? Like, you should be fine. I'm like, no, I just had a hip surgery. Like, I can't walk. And
You're in
um
a
and then
wheelchair.
eventually they're
Yeah.
like, well, you can take the elevator. You have to take it with a police officer, but we can't guarantee that anything might not happen. There might not be a bomb in there. And I was like, well, it's either I get blown up inside the school or inside the elevator. So I don't know. I have to
What?
pick my poison. So I took the elevator and I got out, and that girl had like literally abandoned me. And then I'm trying to like wheel myself out. I have my backpack in my lap. Like I'm trying to wheel myself out. No one's holding the door for me. The door is just slamming in my face. And this was like, this was so messed up. And then I stopped right outside the building because I'm like, they told everyone like you can't stand in front of the building because there's a bomb. So everyone went all the way out, like way past the football field,
Yeah.
like really far away from the school. I'm like, how the fuck am I gonna get there? None of my friends were, none of my friends were allowed.
Yeah. The struggle right now. I just want to say though, while you're coming back to life, like you don't even think about, people with disabilities or like kids with disabilities and how much like the world does not provide for them. Like I know like for us it's like, oh, those everyday things like, yeah, we could just run down the stairs if there's a bomb threat or something and we could run across to the football field and we can park in any parking spot that we want and we can just go through the doors. But yet there are so many people with disabilities who these people do not take,
Right.
accountability for anything that they're doing, like, or how they're creating the buildings, or like, it's 2023. Like,
It's,
why do we not have access
yeah,
for all
I agree.
people, like all disabilities, all ages, all like everything, like just being a human? Why do we not have the proper access for everyone to feel
I
like they
agree.
are
I
being taken
agree.
care of
And
in a
sorry,
way?
everyone. I just had a cough. I started sneezing and then I had a coughing fit and then I was laughing and I just had to go on mute for a hot second. So then I'm out in
It's
this
okay.
field and like you said, like the doors didn't even have the buttons to push the door open. So like I couldn't get out of the building by myself. So then I'm like sitting in front of the
Damn,
building. They're like, you need to
that's
move. I'm like,
crazy.
I cannot wheel
Yeah.
myself. I cannot walk. And I don't know where my crutches are. And then my friend finally comes over. She goes back into the school for me to get my crutches because she's like, she needs her crutches. So then they make me give the wheelchair
Yeah.
back to the school to investigate it for bombs. So then I'm crutching across the football field and I'm like literally crying. I'm like, this is so painful. And then there's a bench, and I go over, and there's a bunch of people sitting on the bench. I'm like, can I sit down, please? And they're like, we're already sitting here. And it was
Okay.
so messed up.
No.
And my friend Lenny luckily took
Absolutely
care of me and
ridiculous.
everything like that. And she was so supportive of me and like all that. But now looking back to it, like back at it, like I laugh, but the whole situation was really wild. So, anyways, all the time, every
No, but
single
people have
day.
to go through
Every
that
single day. It was
every day. People go through that all the
so hard for
time.
me. And I
And
just, and to like, for me, like, that's also another reason
yeah.
why, like, having kids is like, I really want to make sure that like I'm financially stable in case like, I need to buy a vehicle that like if they're in a wheelchair, I can buy a vehicle that I can easily like make accessible, or I can, redo my home
Yeah.
to make the hallways wider or whatever. Like, I really want to make sure, like, I'm not saying I need to be a billionaire before I have a kid, but I want to make sure that I'm in the space financially to give them the best life and the best opportunities that I can between like sports
Yeah.
or accessibilities, whatever it is, right? I want to make sure that I can provide for them. And that's also why I'm taking a
Yeah.
pause on the whole kid thing. So it's like people need to stop asking when I'm having kids. I don't know.
Yeah. And also though, I commend the people already who are like, later 20s, early 30s, whatever. And not even just those ages, but I'm just kind of using that as like our timeline because that's when, society thinks that you should have your life all figured out, which is wild because when you think about it, I'm like, I've only been on this earth for 29 years. Like,
Right.
I could live until I'm like 90. Like, I have so much time ahead of me. But I feel like when people nowadays know for sure that they are not having kids. They've already made up their mind. They feel good about it. I hate when people start shaming them because that person clearly
Right.
feels like maybe they don't want the responsibility. Financially, they can't take care of them. They don't want to raise a child. And those are the people who I commend because I'm like, for the person who's having a kid just to have a kid, but one, you're not prepared on how is your kid going to grow up? Are they going to have a disability? Are you prepared to be, faced with that? Like, are you mentally, physically, emotionally stable to raise a child with a disability? And there's nothing wrong with a person or a child having a disability. But I think that when you don't have that mindset of like, I'm going all in,
Right.
whatever my kid needs from me, I am ready to give them mentally, emotionally, and physically, then you should not become a parent because you can't predict how your son or your daughter or your child in general is going to, be born or how they're going to grow up or like what they're going to need. You
Right.
can't predict that. You can't predict any of that. So if you're not willing to be 100% in, then be 100% out because you do not
There's
deserve to
so
have a
many
child. There's
options.
someone
Yeah.
else out there who really wants to have a baby. Let them have them and you need to just, cut it. I hate when I see like parents just not being like just not parenting properly. Like, and again, I'm not a parent, so I can't say like, this is how you do this or this is how you do that. Or I'm not putting anyone down or shaming anyone for however they raise their kids. But if you are not emotionally there for your child and you are
Right.
not supporting them the way that they need to be supported, like you cannot just shut out your child for the rest of your life just because it's not working for you. So I commend those who already know that they don't want kids and they're, just saying fuck society norms. They don't care what other people are
Exactly. And I
saying and they
think
don't
that
feel the pressure to
kind of
have
goes back
them.
to the whole like women's rights thing and why it's so important for people to have access to affordable health care, have access to birth control, Plan B, all of the options in case that in case they're not suitable to become a parent. And some people are very well aware of it. They're like, I'm not mentally stable, I'm not financially stable, I
Yeah,
can't give the kid a fair chance. I think that that also goes back to the pressure of not the pressure, but like the pressure women feel about like not getting pregnant or getting pregnant, whatever, right? Like there's so much pressure around like either not getting pregnant or
yeah,
getting pregnant because like it can go both ways and it can be good or bad for many different people. So I I think that that plays into a lot of it. And I know that
totally.
there's so many people out there that are like dual income, no kids couples. They call themselves dinks. That's myself right now. And I'm living my best dink life.
Yeah,
And I
yep.
think that there's no shame in it.
I love that.
I think that we're having a good time. I think that we're really just enjoying this time together because I know that we'll have more time to have kids eventually if we are blessed with children. But I'm also open to adopting too. There's so many options to have kids, especially, I mean, adoption
Yeah,
is very, very difficult to adopt as well. But I'm saying that like there are other options if you don't feel like you actually want to give like birth and whatnot. There's also that. It's like, don't shame people that like don't they want a kid, but they don't want to give birth. Or they want a kid, their own kid, but they can't have them. Like don't shame them.
yeah,
Don't shame them. That's a whole topic for another day, but
absolutely not.
kind of just like
Yeah,
wrapping this up, I feel like, there's just so much pressure to like go through different check boxes throughout your life. And it's like the second you reach your next milestone, everyone's already asking what's next. And we're not really enjoying the current moment. And it kind of goes back to social media. It's a
yeah,
highlight reel. We're always like, just like, we're always on our phones too. Like, we're not in the present moment.
I know. Never, never. I also think too, like kind of
Mm.
segueing real quick into the careers aspect of timelines, like some people also don't even want to
Oh,
have kids because
totally.
they want to just be
Yeah.
like full throttle on their career. They love their careers, like their baby, whatever you want to call it. But on the flip side of that, real quick, like if you're someone who isn't a career person and you're not career focused and you don't want to climb the corporate ladder and you just want to stay wherever you are, that is totally fine. Like, do not feel like you have to keep climbing the corporate ladder, that you have to be an entrepreneur or own your own business. Like everyone on social media, I feel like is kind of like, oh, I have this like big corporate job and I'm making, $1 million or I'm going to start my own business and it's amazing.
Yeah.
But nobody shows you what's on the other side of that. How much like blood, sweat, and tears go into that and how much your mental health can like really take a toll on trying to climb the corporate ladder. Like if you're someone who just has like, an essential job, right? If you're, you know, an Amazon driver, you're working at McDonald's, you're driving the trucks, right? Like to bring us whatever it might be. I just feel like so many of those jobs that are truly essential to like
Yeah.
making the world go round, so to say, like really get shit on. And some people don't love to say, hey, I do this, or I'm an Amazon driver, or I'm a manager at
No shame.
McDonald's. And there's no shame in anything that you are doing to provide for one, yourself, to provide, for yourself and your family if you have one. To just be able to
Yeah.
like live out on your own because your mental health was too bad living at your parents. Like the careers portion of our lifetime, I feel like is just,
Mm.
we're taught to like get a corporate job right out of college, climb the corporate
And
ladder, and just be absolutely
And it's not
miserable
meant for everyone. I
mentally
mean, I think we need
because
to
that's what
start,
we're supposed
we
to
need
do.
to continue to encourage like kids, like young children and kids in general that like you don't have to go to college. Like you can go into the trades, you can become a hairstylist, you can manage a retail
Yeah.
store, you can be a manager at McDonald's, like you can bag groceries for the rest of your life. Or you know what I mean, and do
Mhm.
stocking, or you could be a delivery driver. Like there's so many
Yeah.
more options out there than people are aware of. And I think that like the pressure for title chasing and valuing yourself, like making your job like your like how you like hold on, what am I trying to say? Like it's like making your whole identity your job.
Identity.
Yeah, and valuing your
Like
worth
your job is
over the
like
job title you have
yeah.
or the company you
Yep.
work for. And in the past, like I've title chased, like when I first got out of college, and I did that, and I was fucking miserable, right? I was miserable. I ended up quitting that job because I was just like, just because I make more money or just because I have a better title doesn't mean that I'm happier, and it doesn't mean that my life is beneficial. Like, yes, I'm having more money, but the money isn't everything. The title's not everything. And I think that sometimes it takes like a humbling experience for you to be like, okay, like
Totally.
I need to stop.
Yep.
And for some other people, they'll just like keep, torturing themselves to, you know,
Yeah.
I'm
And then they
miserable
get to 50 years old and they're like,
and
wow,
I didn't
I'm
spend any time with my
miserable. What
family.
have I
I
been
didn't
doing for
take
the
any
past
time
20
off.
years?
And I don't want to live my life that way. I don't want to keep title
Yeah.
chasing. And I think that like where I'm at in my job is really, really great. And I think that for me, like that whole experience of like title chasing just for money, like I think I needed that. But now I'm at a place in my career where I feel very confident and I love my career and I'm naturally progressing as I'm like going through things. But I'm not forcing it. I think that that's the difference. I'm kind of just letting life happen and
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm not
Yeah.
just like, going
It
after the
feels
big promotion
natural
because I
to
want more
you.
money. I'm doing it because I actually like my job. So I think that there's a difference there. So I think that there's a lot to be said about like,
Yeah.
careers and title chasing and shaming people
I
for their
agree.
jobs and which is totally unnecessary because if you go to the grocery store, every single person that is working there, you need them. You need them. And it's
Yeah. My bagger, every time I go to Market
ugh,
Basket, I'm like,
market
thank you
basket.
so much. Like, I have a conversation with them. Like,
Exactly.
we're not going to treat
Exactly.
them as they're less than because they're bagging my groceries. It's just absurd. Like, I don't want to bag my groceries. So
Yeah,
I'm very
I
appreciative for someone
agree.
who
I
wants to
agree.
actually do that. Like, thank you. I, yeah. You have to treat everyone as a human first rather
And
than
you
like what
don't
their title
know
is when it
their
comes to,
situation.
careers and stuff. Like
Right.
everyone is human. Everyone is, you don't know what's going on. Yeah, exactly. Like, why are we shaming people? All right. So as we wrap up, what are some final thoughts
Just
for
fuck
you
it.
on society norms and
I'm just
timelines?
gonna say fuck it. Do
What do you
what
have to
makes
say
you
to the
happy.
besties?
Don't do things because it makes other people happy. Don't do things for an Instagram highlight. I mean, although I do love some good fucking photos, let's be for real. I'm spending a good chunk of money. I'm
Of
spending a good
course,
chunk of
we're
money
doing
on my
that,
wedding photography for
We're
a
not saying
reason.
that we're not,
But I'm just
but we
saying that,
also
do things, do what makes you happy, live your life, say fuck it, tell your mom to shut up about the kids, and just go about your day.
yeah, I think my last final words are just enjoy the journey, stop trying to chase the destination, and live in the present moment because tomorrow is not promised. So you could have your 5, 10, 15-year plan, but you don't know if that's actually ever going to come true,
No, it's
right? And I
true
hate to
though.
like
It's
sound
true.
kind of morbid.
Life's short,
I'm not trying to sound like that,
right?
but life is seriously way too short. And I hate to use that like as a cliche, but It really is. You need to live in the present moment. Tomorrow is not promised. Do things for you,
Yay.
do what makes you happy, and live your best life. And I think that's all I have. Thank you for listening, besties. We appreciate it as
Talk to you soon.
usual. And we will see you all in the next
Bye.
episode. Bye.